Admiral Tech sat motionless in his command chair, his four eyes never leaving the display screen. The footage played again. 3 human warships surrounded by the Empire's most devastating energy weapons. The Imperial cannons fired, bright purple beams that should have vaporized any vessel instantly. Instead, the human ships simply absorbed the energy. Their shields didn't even flicker. "Play it again," Tech ordered, his voice barely a whisper. The junior officer obeyed. The same result appeared before them. The most powerful weapons in the known galaxy had failed against these primitive humans from a backwater planet. "Impossible," Tech muttered, turning to face his science officer, who stood nervously clutching a datapad. Science Director Pyle stepped forward, his thin fingers trembling slightly. "Admiral, our analysis is complete. The humans have somehow mastered quantum technology at a level we believe theoretically impossible. Our scientists have discussed such concepts for centuries, but we never managed to stabilize the fields required." "Explain it simply," Tech demanded. "They've created stable quantum fields that can redirect energy. They might even be able to manipulate fundamental forces of the universe itself. It's as if they've discovered how to rewrite physics." Tech slammed his fist on the armrest. "How? They only achieved space travel 3 centuries ago. Our empire has existed for 50,000 years. Before Pyle could answer, the communication panel lit up. The unmistakable Imperial seal appeared, and the officers in the room immediately stood at attention. Emperor Dol's hologram materialized in the center of the bridge. His scaled face was twisted with rage. Yellow eyes narrowed to slits. "Admiral Tech," the Emperor hissed, "explain this failure immediately." Tech bowed deeply. "Your Magnificence, we unleashed our full arsenal as ordered. The human ships, they weren't damaged. They were supposed to be primitive," Emperor Dol snarled. "How did our intelligence fail so catastrophically? Their world showed no signs of this technology. Their colonies used standard propulsion systems. Their communications were unencrypted. It appears they concealed their true capabilities. Your Magnificence," Pyle offered nervously. The Emperor's hologram turned toward the science director. "You mean they fooled us? They presented a false technological front while developing weapons that could challenge us." The question hung in the air. The implications were clear. If humans had deceived the Empire's intelligence network so completely, what else might they be hiding? The Imperial chamber fell silent as sensors suddenly beeped in alert. All eyes turned to the tactical display where a new contact had appeared. "Report," Tech ordered. The young tactical officer checked his readings twice before responding. "Single vessel approaching. Admiral. Small, approximately 1/8 the size of our cruiser. Design is elegant, unfamiliar configuration, but unmistakably human. A ship that size poses no threat," Tech said, though his voice lacked conviction. The communications officer raised her hand. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the vessel. They're requesting an audience with the Emperor." The hologram of Emperor Dol flickered as he processed this information. "They dare to approach after destroying an Imperial battle group." "Your Magnificence," Tech said carefully. "Technically, they didn't destroy our ships. They merely survived our attack and disabled our weapon systems. They allowed our crews to evacuate before." "I know what happened," the Emperor snapped. "The question is what they want now." The tactical officer spoke again. "The human vessel has stopped, Admiral. They're holding position just beyond our defensive perimeter. They appear to be waiting." Emperor Dol's hologram seemed to grow larger, filling more of the bridge. "Put them through. I want to see these humans who think they can challenge the greatest empire the galaxy has ever known." The main view screen shifted. The image of the human vessel disappeared, replaced by the bridge of their ship. It was brightly lit, clean, with displays and controls that seemed almost artistic in their simplicity. In the center stood a human female. She wore a simple dark uniform with minimal markings of rank. Her black hair was tied back, her posture relaxed but commanding. "I am Captain Kim of Earth," she said, Her voice translated perfectly into Imperial Standard. "To whom am I speaking?" The Emperor moved forward, his hologram dominating the transmission. "You address Emperor Dole, 17th of the Eternal Line, conqueror of the 7 spiral arms, master of 10 million worlds." Captain Kim nodded respectfully, but showed no sign of intimidation. "Emperor Dole, I represent the United Earth Government. We wish to discuss the unprovoked attack on our survey vessels and establish diplomatic relations to prevent further misunderstandings." "Misunderstandings?" The Emperor's voice rose. "You hid your true capabilities from the Empire. That is deception, not misunderstanding." Kim's expression remained neutral. "We developed our technology at our own pace for our own purposes. We had no obligation to reveal our advancements to those who might use such knowledge against us." "You will surrender your quantum technology to the Empire immediately," Dole demanded. For the first time, Kim smiled. It was not a friendly expression. "That won't be happening, Emperor. Instead, I request permission to bring a diplomatic vessel to your capital. It's time for proper negotiations between our peoples." The bridge fell silent. No one had ever spoken to the Emperor this way and lived. After a long moment, Emperor Dole spoke, his voice cold. "You may approach the Imperial capital. One vessel only." The transmission ended. The Emperor's hologram turned to Admiral Tech. "Prepare the defenses. Alert all fleets." "Your Magnificence," Tech said cautiously, "if their technology is as advanced as it appears." "I know," the Emperor interrupted, "but perhaps they are not as prepared as they believe." After the Emperor's hologram disappeared, the bridge remained silent. Finally, Tech spoke to his crew. "Monitor that human vessel. Report any unusual activity immediately." Meanwhile, on the bridge of her ship, Captain Kim stood silently looking at the now blank screen. "They agreed," her first officer said, sounding surprised. Kim nodded. "Of course they did. They're curious now, and afraid." She turned to her navigation officer. "Set course for the Imperial capital." It's time they understood exactly what they're dealing with. As the human ship accelerated smoothly toward the heart of the Empire, both sides prepared for a meeting that would change the fate of the galaxy forever. The Imperial Palace of Nexus Prime rose from the planet's surface like a nightmare made real. Metal spires twisted toward the purple sky, made from alloys unknown to Earth science. The structure wasn't built. It looked grown, as if some ancient force had pulled molten metals from the planet's core and shaped them with a cruel hand. Captain Kim stood at the base of the massive entrance, her small diplomatic team behind her. Science Officer Lee adjusted his scanner one last time, while Security Chief Park maintained a watchful gaze on their surroundings. All three wore simple blue uniforms with minimal decoration, a stark contrast to the ornate armor of the Imperial Guards. "Remember," Kim said quietly, "show no weakness. They respect only strength." The doors, each taller than 10 humans, opened silently. 2 Imperial Guards stepped forward, their bodies covered in chitinous plates that gleamed under the strange light. "Follow." One guard clicked, the translator in Kim's ear converting the sound to human speech. The delegation entered a corridor that seemed to bend in impossible ways. The walls reflected distorted images of themselves as they walked. The ceiling pulsed with a faint blue light. "Psychological warfare," Park whispered. "The architecture is designed to disorient visitors." Kim nodded but kept her eyes forward. After several minutes of walking through increasingly disorienting passages, they emerged into the Grand Imperial Court. The chamber was enormous, large enough to fit a small Earth city inside. The floor was polished stone that seemed to shift colors with each step. Above, the ceiling opened to the sky, where 3 moons hung impossibly close. Around the edges of the room stood representatives from countless worlds, some humanoid, others utterly alien in form. As the human delegation moved forward, Kim noticed the subtle strain on Lee and Park's faces. She felt it too, a crushing pressure pushing down on her body. "Gravity has increased by 40%, Lee whispered, glancing at his scanner. A trap for visitors. They expect us to struggle or collapse. Kim continued walking normally, her posture straight and confident. The Imperial courtiers fell silent, watching as the humans moved without difficulty through the heightened gravity. Lee's scanner beeped softly. Captain, atmospheric analysis complete. The air contains trace amounts of mineral inhibitors, paralytic compounds designed to slow reflexes and cloud thinking. Our implants are neutralizing them. The whispers among the courtiers grew louder as the humans approached the center of the chamber. There, atop a series of ascending platforms, sat Emperor Dole upon a throne that appeared to be made of living crystal. The material pulsed with an inner light that matched the rhythm of what Kim assumed was the Emperor's heartbeat. Around the throne stood representatives from the most powerful conquered worlds, their postures submissive, eyes downcast. Guards with energy weapons stood at attention, their weapons pointed toward the approaching humans. Emperor Dole was larger than he had appeared in hologram. His scaled body was draped in metallic fabric that seemed to flow like liquid. His 4 arms each ended in clawed hands that gripped the arms of his throne. His yellow eyes tracked the humans' approach with clear displeasure. "Humans," the Emperor said, his translator rendering his clicking speech into flat words. "You show courage coming here to the heart of our empire." Kim stopped at the designated place, exactly 20 steps from the throne. Protocol dictated that visitors should bow or kneel. She did neither. "Not courage," Kim replied, her voice calm and clear. "Courtesy. We could have simply taken what we wanted." A murmur ran through the assembled courtiers. Such words bordered on sacrilege in the imperial court. The Emperor's scales shifted color slightly, a sign of anger that Kim had been briefed to watch for. "Do you understand where you stand, human? You faced the greatest empire spanning 7 galactic arms, 10 million ships, billions of soldiers, technology developed over 50,000 years of conquest." As he spoke, the walls of the chamber displayed images of imperial might, planets being conquered, fleets of warships darkening skies, weapons that could shatter moons. Kim remained unmoved by the display. She nodded slightly to Lee, who reached into his pocket and removed a small device no larger than his thumb. "With respect, Emperor Dole, we understand exactly where we stand." Lee pressed the device. Immediately, the palace lights flickered and died. The gravity generators failed, causing several court members to float momentarily before emergency systems engage. Defense systems throughout the palace powered down with audible sounds. Environmental controls ceased functioning, causing the temperature to drop rapidly. Panicked voices rose in the darkness. Guards fumbled for emergency lights. Someone screamed as the imperial throne's crystals stopped glowing, leaving the Emperor in darkness. Exactly 30 seconds later, power returned. The systems came back online one by one. The gravity normalized. The displays reactivated. When full light returned, Kim stood in exactly the same position, completely unmoved by the chaos. The Emperor was halfway out of his throne, surrounded by guards who had rushed to protect him. "That was one ship," Kim said into the silence that followed. "One small diplomatic vessel with a minimal power cell. One device smaller than my hand. Imagine what our fleet could do." The Emperor slowly returned to his seat, his scales now a pale color that the human delegation recognized as fear. "You have made your point, Captain Kim," the Emperor said, his translated voice noticeably less confident. "Perhaps we should discuss terms of mutual cooperation." Kim nodded. "That would be wise. Earth has no interest in conquest, Emperor Dole. Unlike your empire, we have evolved beyond that primitive impulse. We seek only peaceful coexistence and the right to develop without interference." "And if we refuse?" Kim didn't answer immediately. She simply looked around the vast chamber, at the representatives of 100 conquered worlds, who now stared at the humans with something new in their eyes. "Hope. I don't think refusal would benefit either of our peoples," Kim finally said. "The universe is vast enough for all of us, but it will no longer be ruled through fear." The Emperor's grip tightened on his throne as he realized that in just a few minutes, these humans had accomplished what no other species had managed in 50,000 years. They had made the eternal empire tremble. The abandoned moon of Raxus hung in space, a gray rock circling a gas giant. Once a mining colony, the empire had stripped it of valuable resources decades ago and left it to drift. Now, it served a new purpose. Inside a hastily constructed dome, the air hissed through filters. The structure wasn't pretty, a functional bubble of metal and plastic, but it was hidden from Imperial sensors. Captain Kim stood at the center of the room, watching as representatives from 12 different species took their places around a simple table. Some looked almost human. The Velox with their pale blue skin, the Tanri with their extra fingers. Others were completely alien. The insectoid Crit, the gaseous Moor contained in special suits, the plant-like Zol whose leaves rustled with every movement. "We risk everything by being here," said a tall bird-like being with golden feathers that caught the light. This was Ran, spokesperson for the lore people. The Empire executes entire families for smaller acts of rebellion than this meeting. The assembled representatives murmured in agreement. Many had traveled in secret, using fake identities or bribed officials to reach this meeting place. Kim nodded. "We understand the risk you've taken. We appreciate your courage." "Is it courage or desperation?" asked a Velox representative, her blue skin wrinkled with age. "The Empire has grown more brutal in recent years. Resource extraction has doubled. Populations are being relocated without warning. The Empire senses its own weakness," said Science Officer Lee, who stood beside Kim. "They're trying to gather resources quickly because they fear what's coming." Rand stepped forward, his golden feathers catching the light. "The Empire has controlled us for 10,000 years. What makes you think humans can change that? And if you succeed, how can we trust that humans won't become the new tyrants?" The question hung in the air. The representatives looked at Kim, waiting. Kim smiled gently. "We don't ask for control. We offer partnership." "Pretty words," the Velox elder said. "The Empire said similar things when they first came to our worlds. Before the chains, before the camps. Judge us by our actions," Kim replied. "We could have destroyed the Imperial fleet. We chose to disable their ships and allow their crews to evacuate. We could have assassinated the Emperor during our visit to the palace. We chose to talk." A reptilian representative hissed softly. "Perhaps you simply aren't strong enough to take control." Before Kim could answer, the lighting in the dome changed. From the shadows near the entrance emerged a tall, slender figure. Its body seemed to glow from within, casting a soft blue light around it. Its features were delicate, almost fragile, with large eyes that reflected the light like mirrors. The assembly gasped collectively. Several representatives stood up in shock. The reptilian representative actually backed away, knocking over his chair. "A Trin," someone whispered, voice filled with awe. "That's impossible." "The Trin were exterminated centuries ago," said the Velox elder, her voice shaking. The glowing being moved with fluid grace to stand beside Kim. When it spoke, its voice was like music. "Not exterminated," said the being. "Hidden. Waiting. The humans found us when no one else could or would." The representatives stared in disbelief. The Trin had been the most advanced species in the galaxy before the Empire rose. Their technology, philosophy, and art had influenced 1,000 worlds. The Empire had supposedly wiped them out in a series of genocidal campaigns, leaving only ruins and fragments of their knowledge. "I am Del," the Trin continued, "last of the Keeper lineage. We scattered ourselves across the darkest reaches of space. We hid our children in stasis fields. We erased our quantum signatures from the universe itself." "How did humans find you?" Ran asked. Del turned his luminous gaze to the avian representative. "They weren't looking for us specifically. They were exploring without Imperial permission. When they found our hidden enclave, they did not report it. They protected our secret. Security Chief Park suddenly tensed beside Kim. In one fluid motion, he drew his weapon, turned, and fired at a distant corner of the dome. A bright energy pulse hit something invisible. A shrieking sound filled the air as a creature fell to the floor, its camouflage technology failing to reveal a small gray being with multiple eyes. The representatives jumped to their feet in alarm. Several reached for hidden weapons. Imperial spy, Park explained calmly, his weapon still raised. There are 2 more behind the eastern column. 2 more shots, 2 more shrieks. 2 more gray bodies appeared, their stealth technology disabled. How did you? Began Ran, staring at Park with new respect. Some humans can sense thought patterns, Kim said simply. The Empire doesn't understand what they're facing. The assembled representatives looked at the dead spies, then at Park, then at Kim. The mood in the room had changed. Fear remained, but something else had appeared, something that had been missing in their eyes for generations. Hope. The Empire has ruled through fear and division, Kim continued. They kept us separate, playing worlds against each other. Together, we have a chance. The Velox elder stepped forward. What exactly do you propose, Captain Kim? A coalition, Kim answered. Equal partners, shared technology, mutual defense, and eventually, freedom for all worlds under Imperial control. The Empire has millions of ships, the reptilian representative pointed out. Science Officer Lee activated a holographic display showing the galaxy. They do. But those ships are spread thin across 7 spiral arms. Their communications rely on quantum relays that we can disable. Their supply lines are vulnerable. Del, the Trin, spoke again. And my people have not been idle during our exile. We have preserved technologies the Empire believes were lost forever. One by one, the representatives moved closer, examining the strategic display. Whispered conversations broke out among them. We would need to coordinate perfectly, Rand said, his tactical mind already working on the problem. We would need to strike simultaneously across multiple sectors, added the reptilian. We would need to disable their communication network first, the Velox elder observed. As the discussion continued, plans emerged. Strategies formed. The coalition took its first breath. In the corner of the room, Kim watched with quiet satisfaction. The species that had lived in fear for millennia were finding their courage. The Empire's greatest weapon, isolation and mistrust, was breaking down before her eyes. The real war was just beginning. The Imperial fortress world of Nex hung in space like a metal star. Its surface was covered with weapons platforms, shield generators, and military bases. For 5,000 years, it had stood as an unbreakable symbol of Imperial power in this sector. Now it burned, not with fire, but with revolution. Admiral Tech stood on the bridge of his command ship, his 4 eyes fixed on the tactical display. Around him, officers worked frantically at their stations, their movements growing more desperate by the minute. Alarms blared constantly until someone finally silenced them. Status report, Tech ordered, his voice calm despite the chaos. Third defense line has fallen, Admiral, reported his tactical officer. Orbital platforms 7 through 22 are offline. Ground-based cannons no longer responding. Tech watched as the display showed another Imperial cruiser go dark, its systems disabled by weapons that left the ship intact but completely powerless. The human vessels, just 3 of them, moved through his defense fleet like predators among helpless prey. How many ships have we lost? Tech asked. The tactical officer hesitated. None destroyed, sir, but 47 vessels are disabled. Crews are reporting total systems failure. Life support remains functional, but weapons, engines, shields, all offline. Tech narrowed his eyes. The humans were deliberately avoiding casualties. They could have destroyed his ships, but chose to disable them instead. Was it mercy or strategy? The communications console chimed. Admiral, urgent transmission from Fortress World Krell. Tech nodded. On screen, the face of Commander Van appeared, his scaled features showing clear distress. "Admiral, we are under attack. Human vessels have appeared in orbit. Our defense grid is failing. Request immediate reinforcement." Before Tech could respond, another call came through. "Admiral, Fortress World Zol reports multiple human ships in their system. Their orbital defenses are already neutralized. 3 fortress worlds under simultaneous attack." Tech felt a cold sensation run through his body. The fortress worlds formed a triangle that protected the Empire's richest resource systems. Each had been considered impregnable. Each had defenses that should have required a fleet of thousands to overcome. Yet the humans were taking them with just a handful of ships. Science Director Pyle approached, his thin body trembling slightly as he held a data tablet. "Admiral, we've analyzed the human weapons. They've deployed devices they call reality anchors. Our ships cannot enter hyperspace within their field effect. We are trapped." "How wide is the field?" Tech asked. "The entire system, Admiral. No ship can escape, and the effect is spreading to our communication relays as well. Soon we will be cut off from Imperial Center." Tech stared at the tactical display. His reserve fleet waited at the edge of the system. 200 ships, the pride of the Imperial Navy. He could order them to engage, but to what end? More destruction, more death. The Empire had always taught that resistance was futile. Yet here were the humans, resisting quite effectively. "Sir," his second-in-command prompted. "Your orders." The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew what Imperial protocol demanded. Fight to the last ship, the last soldier. No surrender. The Emperor would send reinforcements eventually, and those who had failed would be executed for their weakness. But Tech had seen the footage from Earth. He had witnessed the demonstration in the Imperial Palace. He understood what many of his fellow officers refused to accept. The humans possessed technology that made Imperial power obsolete. Tech made his decision. "Signal the fortress. Tell them to stand down." His second-in-command stared in shock. "Admiral, that's against Imperial." "I know what it's against," Tech snapped. "I also know that if we continue to fight, our crews will die for nothing. The humans aren't killing unless forced to. Let's not force them." The order went out. On the surface of Nex, Imperial commanders received the unprecedented command to surrender. Some obeyed immediately. Others hesitated, torn between their admiral's orders and lifelong conditioning to never yield. The hesitation didn't last long. As word spread of Admiral Tech's order, as soldiers saw their mighty weapons rendered useless, the inevitable happened. The fortress world of Nex, pride of the Imperial fleet for 5 millennia, surrendered without a single human setting foot on its surface. In his private quarters, Admiral Tech removed his insignia of rank and placed it on his desk. He knew what awaited him when the Emperor learned of his decision. But he also knew something else, something he had kept hidden, even from his most trusted officers. He opened a secure channel, using codes known only to him. "This is Admiral Tech," he said quietly. "The humans have taken Nex, Krell, and Zol simultaneously. Imperial defense doctrine has failed. Proceed with Phase 2. The face on the other end of the communication belonged to a species that had supposedly been wiped out centuries ago. The Trin representative nodded once. "Understood, Admiral. The resistance cells have been notified. The Coalition sends its thanks for your service." Tech ended the transmission and looked out the viewport at his disabled fleet. For 20 years, he had worked within the Empire, while secretly feeding information to the underground resistance. For 20 years, he had watched the Empire's cruelty while maintaining his cover. Now, finally, he had been able to act openly. Across the galaxy, the carefully planned domino effect began. On a dozen worlds under Imperial control, resistance cells that had hidden for generations received the signal they had waited for. The time had come. On Vaxis Prime, the mining world whose resources built Imperial ships, workers seized control of the automated defense systems and turned them against their overseers. On Trell, the agricultural center that fed an entire sector, Farmers armed with hidden weapons surrounded imperial administrative centers. On Kur, the sacred world where the Empire trained its feared thought police, the acolytes themselves rose up, led by those who had long pretended loyalty while shielding their true thoughts. Imperial news networks tried to suppress the information, but the humans had planned for this too. They hijacked the quantum communication relays, broadcasting images of Imperial forces retreating, of fortress worlds surrendering, of subjugated peoples throwing off their chains. In the Imperial Palace on Nexus Prime, Emperor Dull watched these broadcasts with growing rage. He smashed displays, executed messengers, and threatened entire worlds with destruction. But his threats rang hollow now. The fear that had maintained his rule was evaporating, replaced by something the Empire had worked for millennia to stamp out: hope. In the command ship orbiting Nex, Admiral Tech watched as the first coalition vessels landed on the fortress world. Representatives from a dozen species, human, Lore, Velox, Trin, and others, stepped onto Imperial soil not as conquerors, but as liberators. The Empire, for the first time in millennia, was losing. And Tech, despite knowing his own fate was sealed, smiled. Emperor Dole stood alone, surrounded by the bodies of his fallen guards. His face twisted with rage as he activated the stellar collapse device. The massive machine hummed to life, designed to destroy the entire star system. Alarms screamed across human spaceships. Dr. Song rushed to Captain Kim with urgent news. "The Emperor has triggered a weapon that will make the sun implode," she said quickly. Captain Kim remained calm, giving the simple command: deploy the containment field. Outside the ships, something strange happened. Space seemed to bend and twist. The sun's growing instability suddenly stopped as invisible forces pushed against the Emperor's deadly device. Dr. Song watched her instruments carefully. "The quantum field is working," she reported. "The star is stable." In the Imperial Palace, walls crumbled. The Emperor escaped in a small vessel, sending a final message that echoed across all communication channels. "You humans know nothing," he warned. "There are things waiting in the dark parts of space. This galaxy will burn." As coalition forces took control of Imperial territories, Captain Kim received a troubling report. Long-range sensors had detected massive energy movements heading toward human space. These signals were completely unknown and unlike anything previously recorded. "What can you tell me?" Kim asked her officers. Security Chief Park looked worried. "We've only heard whispers from Imperial communications," he explained. "They call it the Void Protocol." Even the Emperor was afraid of it. Kim stared out at the stars, wondering about the threat approaching. She knew whatever was coming would be a serious challenge for humanity. "Alert all coalition forces," she commanded. "We'll face this together." The mysterious signals continued to move closer, bringing an unknown danger that would test the human fleet's survival and courage.